everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm Jamie. Let's get crafting. For the first DIY, I'm using this Dollar Tree sign, flipping it over, and I paint one coat using the Waverly chalk paint in white. Next, I use my L-shaped ruler from Dollar Tree and I'm making shiplap lines starting with my pencil, and then I go over it again using the Waverly Antique Wax. I space my lines out about the width of the ruler, but you can do them as thick or as thin as you prefer. So then I used a fine tip paintbrush to paint in those lines with the antique wax. And then I used the help of my ruler to guide my brush. And then you'll notice as I slide my ruler to the next line, it kind of smudges the paint or whatever. But honestly, that added to the distress factor I go for later. And for the distressing part, I used a dry stencil brush with absolutely no paint on it, and I go over the lines I just made. Now the paint on some of those lines are still wet, so this works in my favor, but then I do have to go in with a tiny bit of paint for distressing the edges. Next, I use this truck stencil I got on Amazon. I'll leave a link for you in the description box. I taped it down with some painter's tape so it won't move around on me. And then I actually had to lift that back up and paint underneath the truck under these dark lines so they wouldn't show through. I did not think of that. And then I used the Waverly chalk paint in Agave and a tiny drop of white chalk paint to soften that color up a bit, and then I stenciled in my truck. And another thing I didn't think of ahead of time was covering those tires with the painter's tape. I don't want any agave on that. So now using some black chalk paint, I'll paint those tires, and then I go in later with some elephant chalk paint and paint the grill and bumpers. Now, when I took the stencil off, I saw that there were some areas that needed touching up, so I just go over those areas with some leftover paint, and you can't even tell. And with some black paint, I added some detail to the door to make it look really cute. And then I used some Harvest Orange by Apple Barrel and paint some pumpkins in the back of the truck. Now, while I have those pumpkins drying, I grabbed some wooden letters from Dollar Tree to spell out the word pumpkin. Now, I only have one letter P, so I took the R, cut off a leg, sanded her down, and then you can't even tell it was ever an R. And here are the two side by side, and you can't even tell that one was a P and one was originally an R. They pretty much look the same. Using that same orange paint as the pumpkins, I paint one coat over all the letters, and don't forget to do the edges. Now to give those pumpkins some detail, I used the same antique wax as before, gave it some shape, a stem, and a little curlicues, and then I used some green paint to paint a couple of leaves too. So now I'm arranging my letters before gluing them down, and I also use these stencils from Michaels. I'll leave a link down below. The words are stacked together, so I use my scissors to cut the words Farm Fresh in half so I can have the words side by side. After hot gluing my letters, I just use the same black paint as before and stencil in my letters. And then I have this black Sharpie paint pen, a regular black Sharpie will do. I added some detail in the words hayrides, corn maze, and cider at the bottom. Now to jazz up my display, I have these mini pumpkins from Dollar Tree and these little tin pails that you can get in their wedding section. 10 pumpkins come in a pack, and I took 5 off the 6 and kept 5 on. Then I used pieces of a pool noodle as floral foam, stuck it down in the pail, and filled it with some Dollar Tree moss, and then stuck the pumpkins with the sticks inside. For the other 5, I just left them looking like they fell out of the pail. Now what I forgot to show you is that I paint both pails to look galvanized using some black acrylic paint, elephant chalk paint, and antique wax. And it definitely gave it a much better look. This video is part of a DIY challenge hosted by Heidi Sonboul. I will leave a link to her channel as well as the playlist to all the other creators participating in this month's challenge down in the description box below. For this next DIY, I used some popsicle sticks from Dollar Tree, laid 10 of them out side by side, creating a little gap in between. And I used another popsicle stick to kind of help me make sure that they were all aligned perfectly. Once I had those laid out, I took a couple of other popsicle sticks, added some hot glue, and laid them on top. I even had to cut a couple of them down to fit. Then I used another stick to help me make a couple of lines so I knew where to cut because I don't want those rounded ends on the stick. So I just used my pencil, trace along those lines, and then I took my craft scissors and then just cut along that line. Then I take some Waverly white chalk paint and a dab of brown paint because I really wanted an off-white color and I'm out of ivory, so I'm just working with what I got. I mixed those two colors and gave this thing one coat of paint. Then I took one of Dollar Tree's wooden pallets and had my husband help me cut them into 2 pieces. This will become our stand. I thought that maybe I could break this into 2 pieces with my hands, but no dice. Now I just take one of these pieces and give it a good sanding just to smooth out those rough edges. And then I go ahead and take some antique wax and I paint 1 coat and let it dry. Next, I take the metal word blessings from this Dollar Tree pack of metal words from Easter, little dots of hot glue, and stick her in place. Then hot glue one of those Dollar Tree stems for the top of the pumpkin. Now if you don't have these, Mother Nature usually gives these out for free. Then I wedged a Dollar Tree fall flower in between 2 of the popsicle sticks and added a little hot glue. And then to top it off, a little dab of hot glue on that little jute twine bow, stuck it on top of the stem, and then this project was done. Well, after I added a little bit of hot glue to the bottom of this piece and then wedged it in between those 2 slats, and then this project was done. For the third DIY, I'm using one of those vine wreath forms from Dollar Tree, and I'll be using some eucalyptus leaves from a 4th of July DIY I had done. And I'll just be placing the greenery where I want it and tying it down with some floral wire. I'd like to take a quick second to welcome you if you are new here to my channel, even if you're not new. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Jamie, and I love doing inexpensive DIYs, trash to treasures, and hauls. If you're enjoying this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button before you leave. And then if you want to, leave me a comment, say hi. I love getting to know all of you and saying hi to everybody. And I always read the comments, so yeah. Definitely leave me a comment. Say hi. You know, leave a flower, some kind of funny emoji or something. So now I'm just taking a couple of these white pumpkins, came from Walmart, and I'm going to hot glue those into place. And I do add some pine cones later that I forgot to show. I forgot to hit record, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, you'll see that later on coming up. All of a sudden, there'll be pine cones on the wreath. So I decided to use this gorgeous ribbon from Dollar Tree to make my bow. Now, I don't do a very good job at showing this on camera, but I simply make 4 loops on either side and then pinch it in the middle of the ribbon, and I use floral wire to tie it all together. Now, you can use twine, chenille stems, whatever you want. This happened to be right in front of me. Don't forget to fluff your bow. Then I attach the bow to the wreath using the same floral wire and then proceed to fluff some more. Now I'm going to use the infamous red farm truck on this wreath. Now I take the stake off of it, I lay it on top of the wreath where I want it, mark it with a pencil. That way I know where I need to hot glue my chenille stems. And don't worry about what color they are, you're not going to see them anyway. And again, you can use chenille stems, you can use floral wire or jute, whatever you want to use to tie this down. You can even use zip ties if you really wanted to, but this is what I had in front of me because I found them. I thought I lost them, and then I found them, and then so I decided to use them. And see, look, what did I tell you? Pine cones. So there I am, just hot gluing my chenille stems right in place in between my little pencil marks, and then adding a boatload of hot glue because I do not want this sucker coming off. And then I just attach it, and then I do let it sit for a good couple minutes because a lot of hot glue takes a good minute to dry. And then I just flip it over and attach it to my wreath. And for the 4th and final DIY, I am taking this scrap piece of wood from my garage. What's great about this was that it was free, like literally. It was in the garage when we got our house. Anyway, I measured it out about 6 feet in length. I don't know exactly how wide it is. I'm not good with measurements, honestly. But anyway, I made my lines. I made my cut that I forgot to make, or if I forgot to record, and then I proceeded to sand it with 120 grit sandpaper. I started with 80 and then I went to 120. Then, once I got all that done, I applied 1 coat of my favorite standby min wax called Red Oak. Then, after letting that sit for a day, I use my Waverly White chalk paint, and I think that says Harvest Orange by Apple Barrel, which is an acrylic paint. So I paint the words happy and y'all in chalk paint, and you can see the difference with just one coat. You'll be able to see that here pretty soon. But then when I go in with the acrylic paint to write the words or the letters FALL to spell out fall, I have to use multiple coats. I actually ended up having to use 4 coats just to get that to pop out. So for any of you that are new to crafting and may have wondered why most of us use chalk paint, it's because of the coverage you get, and you can see the difference in this DIY I'm doing. To really get the letters to pop, I had to outline them in this yellow deep acrylic paint. If I had a chalk paint in another fall color, I would have used that instead, but unfortunately I don't. So to finish this project off, I added some twine and hot glued some faux fall leaves at the top. That is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave me a comment down below and tell me which one of these is your favorite. Also, don't forget to hit that like button and scroll down to the description box and click the link to see the other crafters and see what they made. Thanks to Heidi Sonboul for these monthly challenges and getting to know everybody. Y'all have a wonderful, blessed day. Bye!